Welcome everybody. I am Christine Weiser. I am the publisher of Tech and Learning and Tech and Learning University, and today has been amazing. The conversations today in this leadership lounge, which is where I've been all day, have been just terrific. So thank you very much. Some just quick logistics. So hopefully you've been on the conference hub. We actually broke their chat. And we just had we had over 5,000 chats, so we had to quickly increase our account. So that was cool. So it's working again. So you can do live chat on the homepage with everybody. You can chat with our speakers on the speaker page, and also with the sponsors on the sponsor page. Thank you to our sponsors: Catch On, Classcraft, FileWave, Global Teletherapy, GradeCam, and Sanford Programs, a couple of whom are new partners for us, so we're really happy to have them on board. So if you please go say hi, you can book a meeting with them. They're all doing some very cool things, and you can enter Passport to Prizes. There's a button on there, so if you enter that, you can get a raffle, and we will do the drawing at the end of the day. And of course the networking, so there is a registrant directory, so if there's anyone you want to connect with, you can book a meeting, and you can just kind of put a random date and time in there, but then put your contact information in the details, and then you can connect with them when convenient. So during this session, we'll hear from three amazing good friends of ours and some real innovators in the space, like we've been hearing from all day. So they'll do some presentations, but we will do some questions and answers throughout. I'll help monitor the chat. And then all the resources we will make available in the hub probably Monday by the time we get all the slides and stuff like that. So please help me welcome. Now we have Lisa Nielsen, who is the Senior Director for Digital Literacy and Inclusion for the New York City Department of Education. We have Laura Ogando, who's the Program Manager for the Digital Literacy and Inclusion. And we have Paul Sanfrancesco, who's the Director of Technology for Owen J Roberts District in Pennsylvania. So I guess I will hand it off to probably Lisa, since you're the one who built that really groovy classroom. So I'll hand it off to the speakers, and we'll just keep an eye on the questions and keep the questions coming in chat.
Thank you so much, Tech and Learning. We are excited that you invited us here from New York City. I'm Lisa Nielsen, and with me is Laura Ogando. And you explained our titles. I've been at the department for about 20 years in a variety of capacities. One was the Director of Digital Literacy and Citizenship. And I'll turn it over to Laura to give you a little introduction about her, and then over to Paul, and then I'll also share my screen with our slides after Paul introduces himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Ogando. I just started with the Office of Digital Literacy and Inclusion. I started officially March 9th. So right before the pandemic happened, but I've been supporting students in digital literacy for quite some time, and really helping the school I worked with and now educators think about digital citizenship and implement that curriculum. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and to also hear from you, because I think now more than ever, this topic is so important and we need to address it, especially moving forward. I know that the ramp up to remote learning was so quick, and I think, it wasn't necessarily at the forefront, but now I think we can take a breath and really plan strategically and make sure that we include digital citizenship in that planning.
And
Hi,
Paul?
I'm Paul Sanfrancesco. I'm the Director of Technology. Owen J Roberts. I'm right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So my New York crew here and the Philly crew is all in effect here today. And I've been an educator for over 25 years, assistant principal, director of technology, teacher, tech coordinator. So digital citizenship has been a big piece of what I do in our district, and actually around the country. I go around and speak to districts and conferences about digital citizenship, and I'm also a professor at St. Joseph's University, and one of the courses I do teach is digital citizenship. So, and Lisa and I have done presentations many years, and we consult and do things for tech and learning and things like that. So it's this remote environment. The one piece that I put out to our parents right before this is, get involved in social media with your kids now. It's going to be a huge part of their lives because they won't have social interactions outside of their home. So they're quarantined, and it's been a big push in our district and a lot of districts across the country.
Yeah, great point. So I'm going to share my screen, which means I won't be able to as easily see chat or any questions. So I'm going to rely on Christine to help all of us with those if they come up. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared. And you'll see on the front slide of my screen, I do have a link to our agenda, and our agenda links to the presentation and a whole bunch of other great resources. So please feel free to go to the agenda and get all those resources right now if you want to look at them while we are looking at them. Also, the link is on other pages. So if you don't catch it on this first slide, don't worry, you'll have more chances. All right, so let me go to our next slide. Okay, next slide. Next slide is housekeeping, and I'm going to hand this over to Laura because she does such a great job of going through this. So Laura, over to you.
Absolutely. So I'm sure you guys have heard the spiel before, but like mute your mic. You're certainly welcome to have your camera on. It actually is kind of nice to see folks. But you know, if internet is a little choppy, which I always feel like towards the end of the day it gets dicey, you can certainly turn it off, help save you some bandwidth. And then as stated before, we are moderating the chat, and we do want this to be very conversational. So definitely utilize the chat to put any questions, any comments. We want to create a dialogue, especially around digital citizenship. This is not just us talking at you and presenting a lot of information. We want to discuss best practice. We want to talk about what's happening now and how this is going to look in the future. So I do urge you, utilize that chat. And then because we're on Zoom, again, you have that ability to raise your hand, and should you do that, we will, like I said, be facilitating, and you can certainly, when we prompt you, unmute yourself because we would like to hear from you.
Yeah, and I know, as Paul said, we've done this a few times, and we're really excited to have this as a conversation, not just a presentation. So we're gonna give you something to set the stage, and first, sorry. In a moment, we're going to give you something to set the stage, and then hopefully we'll get into a conversation. But here's one stage, which is our digital citizenship in the age of remote learning Bitmoji classroom. So this is a part of our presentation. In it, you have an easy way to access many resources that you might be interested in. Common Sense Education, Google's Be Internet Awesome, the article I'm going to be referring to in the next slide, Ignition, which is part of EverFi. And also from this slide, you can access our agenda, bit.nyc/TLD-DIGSIT, and that is case sensitive, and our presentation can all be accessed. Over here to the left is me, Lisa Nielsen, in the beanbag chair with my dog Otto, and then you can see Laura on the couch and Paul behind the couch pointing to the whiteboard. And if you want our Twitter handles, those are all listed on the post-it behind the couch. So the agenda of what we're going to do is we'll share an article with you, and that will set the stage for discussing why this matters now. Then we'll be talking about digital citizenship teaching pre and post COVID-19, norming behaviors for the online classroom, best practices, and I really don't think we'll get to the bonus activity, but I always like to have one in case dialogue ends soon. So there might be a bonus activity of a resource review. So to start this off, this was an article that came out in the New York Post, and our team is in Microsoft Teams, and we have an ongoing dialogue. And so we shared this, and the question was, what is your reaction to this? So this article, I took an excerpt from it, and you can, from the presentation, you can look at the full article if you'd like. But it says that mischievous kids were manipulating and posting clips of their teachers, remote learning sessions on social media, leaving educators wary of video classes. And the thing that really stuck out to me is there are a lot of us who are not comfortable with it, said a Bronx middle school teacher. You never know where your face is going to end up. And the thing is, you might not be comfortable with it, but this is part of the 21st century. And this is part of what we really have to be doing, especially in this time of digital learning, remote learning, and the digital age. So this leads us to a few of the discussion questions. And before I go into that, I just want to turn it over to Laura for one more moment, because Laura, when we shared this article, you said the whole idea of that it used to be just one person teaching digital literacy, and now it's a job of everyone. So if you could just share a little bit more about that thinking, and then Paul, if you want to add to it, and then for the participants, if you can look at these questions, then we can start discussing them. So Laura?
Sure. So as I stated previously, I was in the classroom in September. I was my school's digital literacy specialist, and I was tasked with teaching digital citizenship to all 800 of our students. I worked in an elementary school, and I had to teach all 800 K through 5 students on this. And it is in the DOE, it is something that we are required to teach, as I'm sure it is around the nation. But it was me, and it was solely me as like the tech teacher. I hate that term, but you know, as the person who, you know, kind of was doing a lot of that work with the laptops and technology, I was always tasked with it. And I actually spoke up and I said, you know, I understand why, you know, this is put on me. However, I shouldn't be the only one teaching this, because, you know, all of our teachers are using this technology. You know, even in their classrooms, they had laptop carts, they were using iPads as well in the lower grades. And so it's not the responsibility of just the tech teacher, right? Or the tech person in the building. And I think when we shifted into remote learning, you know, that like little gripe I had, it became much more clear to administrators, like, oh yeah, that's right. All of us are technically technology teachers, and we are all having to use this medium now. And it really begged the question for, you know, that planning piece of like, we need to train everyone to do this, not just one teacher. So that is why I think this is so important right now, is we really need to reframe the way that we're even delivering this curriculum. It's not just up to one teacher, or even just maybe a small subset of teachers. Every teacher should be teaching this. So that's my little spiel on it. I'll turn it over to Paul.
I'm in a complete agreement that it cannot be isolation in one curriculum. We do it all through our teachers in every grade level from K through 8, and then 9 through 12 is a little different, but our K8, we constantly have teachers using it in the curriculum. And every teacher at my district knows to contact me to be the heavy in their classroom. So the director of technology shows up, and it takes kind of that onus off of them too, where it's a partnership. It's, you know, we're not the tech guys with the wires and never see us. The kids know who I am. So if I'm in the classroom, all of a sudden they come up and say, is someone doing wrong with their camera? Is someone doing, like, it's immediately, well, sometimes there's nothing wrong, but it's good to have that visibility where they know someone is always watching. The teachers are in partnership with the technology department, and it's everybody from principals. You know, before the holiday break in our middle school, we talked to every grade about, hey, you're going to have an extended break over this holiday season. You're going to be on technology. You have to remember, we're watching. You know, everybody's watching, your parents, things like that. And we need to get more parent involvement. You know, it's great that we do all this here, but we know they're not monitored a lot at home. So what's our parent PD look like? And that's a huge thing we do here at our district, is a K-12 parent series on digital citizenship and how to be a digital parent in this area of TikTok and everything they do at home.
And Paul, what do you use for the parent workshops? Is there a particular resource that you go to for that?
Yeah, it's usually me and our psychologists that do it together in the school. So I bring, you know, I'm a parent myself. I have degrees, the whole thing. So but when you bring our psychologist in too, that balances that piece of, here's the reality and here's the psychologist end of this, that it's not just you did something wrong, or why did you do that? Why are kids doing that? And the positive and the negative effects. So it's not always negative, it can be positive. So we really do both of them, and we bring in our principals, and we bring our high school students in too to talk to our younger grade levels on what their take on social media and digital citizenship was as they leave the district. So they're talking with us also to the younger kids and the middle school kids also.
I love the idea of it being not just on one person's shoulders, as Laura was saying, and as you said, and that it's a partnership. I love the idea of bringing students in because they often know so much more. In New York City, we have something called a parent coordinator. So we always try to get a partnership between the parent coordinator, the library media specialist, the guidance counselor, and if possible, school administration. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So let's move to our question, which we want to have this conversation with people, which is, how has your digital citizenship teaching changed in where you work since moving to remote learning? And if it hasn't changed, how do you think it should change? And if you can just, maybe we'll put those questions in the chat so people can see it, but I want to stop sharing my screen so that we can actually have a dialogue about those questions. And if you want to say something in response, if you could just raise your hand and we will be able to call on someone who would like to say something. And maybe Laura, can you pop those two questions in the chat so that people
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'm curious because Laura very recently, as of like a couple months ago, is no longer in the classroom, and I'm not directly in the classroom. So I'm curious just to hear from other districts. Has it changed? Have people taken on the responsibility to be digital citizenship teachers more than just like that one person in the school? Does anyone want to raise their hand and chime in? We'll do the appropriate waiting time. Oh, Jackie's raising her actual hand, not the not the raise hand. Okay, you could raise your actual hand, Jackie.
Well, you have to, I think you can only raise your hand in the webinar rooms. This is a meeting room. So, I mean,
if you go to participant, here, let me share my screen. If you go to participants, then you can select raise hand. So let me show you what that looks like. Do folks see my screen right here? Where it's, so you click participants and then raise hand. Can everyone have access to that?
I see it actually. So if you click participants, it says invite, mute me, and raise hand. I don't know if that's because we're.
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, it's showing up in chat.
And also, if you can't see it, then you could just do what Jackie did and put your hand up, and we'll see that too. So yeah, Jackie, go ahead.
That's how we do it.
We don't hear you, Jackie, even though it says you're not on mute. Nope, still don't hear you. So maybe your headphones aren't properly connected. Not sure.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
I give up. I'm on the Chromebook. This is never happening again. I'm not using my Chromebook anymore. It's been nothing but trouble.
Oh, don't diss the Chromebook.
I know, and I do love it, but it's just giving me trouble today. So, okay. And I'm probably going to forget what I was even going to say. No, again, from the perspective that I'm coming from with my team at the district level. So I'm in New York City with Lisa and Laura, and I'm at the district office in Staten Island. What we're trying to do is work within our teams so that my teams at the district level understand what digital citizenship is, so that they're able to take it to their participants. So like the ENL teachers, the ENL team, they actually work with all the ENL teachers. The special ed team, they work with special ed teachers. So what we're doing is we're working on it at our level, filtering it out, and kind of they're getting a better understanding so that they can kind of tie it in to their content areas and to their specialty areas. So we're all kind of speaking the same language. It's just, it really helps. And we also work with the parent coordinators. So it's getting all the constituents to kind of be in this mindset of like, we have to be proactive versus reactive, because we are in a situation, we should have been doing this all along, but now it's definitely newer, right? So that's where we are.
Thank you. And
work with, you know, we've been working. No, I was just saying is that I've had the pleasure of working with you guys, and this has been like a huge project, and I'm on board.
And Lori Stahl von Brockel is raising her virtual hand. Lori, do you want to chime in?
We also have Vanessa.
Okay, so let's do Vanessa, then Lori.
Yes, hello. Can everyone hear me? Let me make sure you can hear me. So here, I'm Vanessa. I'm from Los Angeles Unified. And so I was kind of putting the comments in the chat box, what's been going on here. And since having gone remote, what we've seen is that digital citizenship has been just thrust to the forefront. And so the biggest change here, which I wrote in the chat, was it's no longer an abstract practice. Now it's real-time, real-world modeling that we as our education leaders need to do for our students. And much like I think Jackie was sharing about that proactive approach, that positive approach about practicing what it is that we can do versus having conversations about what we shouldn't do. And so 2 weeks ago, part of a broader, larger initiative to prepare our educators around this future ready skills, we actually trained nearly 14,000 teachers on digital citizenship and what it means to have these kinds of proactive, positive conversations. So this has really been top of mind topic here in LA Unified.
How did you get to 14,000 teachers so quickly?
Webinars, 2 in 1 week. One webinar had 7,000, the other one had 7,000.
Wow.
And it's part of, a much broader, extensive program that has synchronous components and asynchronous components. And in the asynchronous components, we invited educators to delve deeper into the partnerships that we have that support digital citizenship here, such as Common Sense Education Resources, ISTE resources. And so it's a broader effort, but definitely top of mind here in the district.
Vanessa brings up a great point that, what we're finding now, especially with social media and everybody being home, is our children need to figure out how to still like somebody and disagree with somebody on social media.
Not just our children.
I agree, but these are the ones that are going to fix it in the future. And part of being a digital citizenship is respecting one's opinion that you can disagree with, but still like that person. We're finding it very hard right now when we go teaching about digital citizenship is, well, they don't agree with me, so I don't like them. But, well, no, that's, and that whole social media and digital citizen piece is huge right now. And that, we talk about social emotional learning and everything else there, but that debate issue and respecting a person's opinion and not agreeing with them, we need to start doing more training with that.
Yeah, for the students and the parents.
I didn't go there. I didn't want to go there, parents. I'm just focusing on the students because, yes, it is a learned behavior. So you're right. The parents have to be trained, but we can do a lot with our kids with that conversation.
I also think, Paul, you're bringing up a great point about how we need to help, train not just obviously our teachers, but our students in using social media because, especially now that we're in this pandemic and we're also isolated, social media has become a way for everyone to connect, not just our kids with their friends, but I know for me and my team, I connect with my colleagues, but also I'm connecting with my friends. And social media has been kind of like a saving grace. It's what has allowed so many of us to stay connected and feel some semblance of normalcy when we can't actually be together. So it's not this completely negative thing. It can be, but if it is used in a positive way, and if we teach, our children to use it that way, then, they are more likely to be those positive adults and have really positive interactions. So I know that, parents, because I've done the training for parents, they're always really skittish, and I get it, but it starts with those conversations. It starts with, having a productive dialogue, because if you're always skittish and you're always putting, blocks on and saying, no, not yet, no, you can't, no, 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 they're never going to get the opportunity to learn how to do this the right way.
Right.
And I just noticed we do have a couple hands up, but I really liked, when so many people instantly commented and it went away. But what Vanessa said about at LA, they design professional development for educational leaders on the importance of having a digital presence to be role models for students. And, you know, like it or not, if we are educators or education leaders, we are role models for students. And the impressive thing is not to, I'm going to do a double negative, but there's so many people who are like, oh, if you Google me, you won't find anything. That's not impressive. And in fact, if I wanted to, and I know some cases where this has happened, anyone could take over your digital footprint if you have no digital image. So instead, let's show students and families what they should be. So I love that Vanessa is doing that in LA Unified. So we do have a couple more hands up. We have Lori's hand up. So Lori, if you're able to chime in, we welcome you too.
Hi,
Hi.
Lori Stalvin-Brackle from New York City. I'm a classroom teacher now in Ozone Park. And before that, I was the instructional tech director for Manhattan's borough office. And I'm talking from both the perspective of working in a larger multi-district capacity as well as in the classroom. When this all shifted, I was in a great spot. I was teaching technology. My kids clicked into it really quickly. The school that I'm in, we had a tech coach. Everybody was on technology. It really did click pretty quickly. What happened was the schools that I had been working with in Manhattan started reaching out to me, saying, can you help us? Can you help us? Can you help us? And I was like, I have 360 kids and a full load, but I'll do what I can. And it became tapping into the teachers in those buildings to become the leaders and to get the digital citizenship concepts that we had gone over in the work that I had done with them out to their teachers. And all of a sudden they became leaders and they became the ones that were running with it. And it was the most joyful thing for me to come into a chat that they were having or a Zoom meeting and have them all like with their ideas and sharing with each other that I knew that they were also doing with their students. So it was like this work that had a ripple effect that started really kind of slow, and then all of a sudden with this whole thing happening, seeing it really go in all these different schools, that was for me really joyful to see. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. So if there's other people who want to chime in on this, let me know now. And if not, I did post in the chat our next two discussion questions. So I'll say what the next two discussion questions are so people can get their minds thinking around them. But we can also take any last comments on those particular questions. The next questions are, how are you addressing this and what norms have you set? And this is like norming behavior for the online classroom. How are you addressing that and what norms have you set? And I'm just going to share my screen for 1 second again, because I know sometimes it's easier if you see the screen to process the questions. So let me get on present mode and have those up. And then before we discuss these new questions, if there are any people who want to say anything else about our previous questions, please go ahead and let us know. And I think we got the hands of who wanted to share before. So here are the new questions to consider. And I would like to ask Laura to talk a little bit about this, because this is something she's been talking a lot about just in our conversations about the importance of, we did norming behavior in face-to-face learning. Are we doing norming behavior in the online classroom? So you can say a little bit about that to set the stage, Laura, and Paul, then anything you have to add, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Sure. So, when I think about norming behaviors, I think about, what September is all about, right? And how, as a classroom teacher or an out-of-classroom provider, you set those expectations in the beginning, right? You talk about it with your students. I oftentimes would collaborate with the students. It was like, what do we want in our classroom, right? Like, what are the expected behaviors? And, you get the typical, like, we want to respect each other. If someone shares an idea you don't agree with, you don't say that that's a bad idea. You talk about it. Like, we want to feel inspired and encouraged. We set all those expectations up in like the physical space. And so we need to kind of transfer that methodology over into the online space. what do we want to feel when we're online, right? What are the things that we want to engage in? Because we know that, you know, being online, it's a really big space, right? And not everywhere is safe. And we need to talk about that with students. We need to say, like, what do I do if I end up in a space online that I don't like, that I don't feel comfortable with? What are the expectations? What do I do? Who do I go to? Who do I tell this to, right? You know, what do I do if I'm in a situation and I don't agree with someone online, right? Like, we need to talk through all this stuff. It's not just implied. And having that conversation, setting those expectations, that's really, really important. And I think we sometimes don't address that. We don't give it enough airplay, and it's really, really key. And I know that oftentimes, particularly at home, because, you know, I've done the workshop with parents. Parents are very skittish because they don't understand it. And my thinking around this is, you don't have to be the expert in the room. In fact, I always deferred to the kids, like, what's the cool app? What's the latest thing? Let's talk through it. What are you noticing? So, you know, we just need to have the dialogue. I think, you know, I can't stress it enough. Talk about that, put the expectations out there, and, you know, then support as needed. You don't have to be the expert. So I'll pass it over to Paul.
I agree. The remote learning has thrown us in this modeling behavior of digital citizenship. I mean, just think about what we're doing right now with Zoom, just with professionals. With students, if you have a teacher doing a Zoom from their bedroom or Zoom from here with no background, and how are they dressed, and you're not going to get the norms you will have in classroom out online. So a lot of that behavior we need to model now in this remote learning environment, because it's a great opportunity to do this digital citizenship piece from a teacher and administrator end. How is the principal doing morning announcements on YouTube? How do they look? What are they addressing? Is it normal? Like, and those are the big pieces of right now that some districts have just ignored, and really it's all over the place and there's no standard. I don't want to go from one classroom and see chaos of online remote. I want to see kind of, we have the same norms in every classroom, and why do we do this? And then relate it to their own social media and digital citizenship and things like that. It's a great teaching opportunity that we can have. And most of us know it's 50-50 that we're going to be, you know, like this in September or August. So how do we set those things that we miss now so we can teach our students that really digital citizenship is everybody's responsibility? And I'm modeling that behavior. You know, I'm muting myself. I'm doing that. I'm not talking over somebody just because, you know, I'm not kicking somebody out of the chat. It's that whole piece we've been dealing with for years, that this is an opportunity for us to model that in a classroom setting.
And I like Vanessa shared again what they have DigCit expectations, and they embedded them into their responsible use policy. And she put a link to that. And I'll try to do this while we're talking, but if I don't have a chance, I'll add it to our agenda. When this all happened, we put together remote learning guidelines for educators and students. And it just brings me back to thinking of the first article that we shared. And if that did happen, where a student posted a teacher, how is the teacher handling that with their classroom? I think it's a great conversation to have. And, you know, the kid, I don't know, because I don't even know if it's true. It's the New York Post, not the most respectable newspaper in New York City. But I wonder if that did happen and what the kid posted. And, you know, it might have been the kid trying to be funny. And I just think that it's a conversation that they should have had with their students. And also just that whole newspaper article, that could be something that a teacher talks to about with their students. And because at least in New York City, I'm sure in many places, we now have these online learning platforms for classrooms. We're really big on Google Classroom, but you can have, it doesn't have to be everyone coming together and talking about it, but you can have a discussion about it, and you could elicit smart responses from students. So I'm going to take a look and see if anyone has their hand raised in the participants view. So Vanessa and Jackie's hands are raised, but I don't know if that's from before. And if it's not from before, Okay. So I don't think I can lower your hand. Um, but I think you have a way to do that. Jackie, is yours from before or is it new? It's from before. I read her lips. Good job. Okay, so so we can move to our next question if nobody has any comments on that topic. So let me pull up our next question. And I'll share my screen again. Okay, and share. Okay, here we go. And we'll get into present mode. Okay, so let's slide this over. So what are the resources you have found effective? What are some of the best practices after having this experience that you plan to implement in your district? So, so that's the next question. And we'll have our facilitators start with sharing some of their favorite resources, and then participants, please, if you have other resources and ideas that we haven't mentioned, please share those as well.
So I really love Common Sense Media. I think, you know, it's kind of at this point almost like the gold standard. And I love it because they have resources that are geared obviously for educators, and it's where I pulled a lot of the curriculum, but they also have a parent section. And so when I spoke with parents and I led workshops for parents, I would always point them there because they didn't know. They're like, well, how would I know about that app? Or how do I know about this? How do I know about that? And, you know, I'm like, you got to get on Common Sense. And once they find out about it, they're like, whoa, this is amazing. So just from, you know, just a curriculum standpoint, if you're not on Common Sense, you need to be. But then I also found out about Google's digital citizenship curriculum, which is Be Internet Awesome. And as an elementary educator, that actually became a really cool way to then take the curriculum and make it a little bit more fun. I think that's the other piece that when I would teach, you know, these lessons, you know, some of my kids would be like, we're doing that thing again. Yeah, I know how to be safe. You know, and so I get that sometimes the content doesn't feel as exciting, but what Google did is they gamified the curriculum. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a really awesome curriculum. They use a lot of the same resources as Common Sense, but you play games, and in order to get through the game, you have to answer a lot of questions, and then you end up having to defeat like the virtual bully, so to speak. It was really fun, and my kids loved it. So those were two of my favorites from the elementary standpoint. Google's Be Internet Awesome is really for grades 3 through 6. The Common Sense Media spans the gamut, so anywhere from, I believe, pre-K, if not K, all the way up until 12th grade.
Same resources. Google is wonderful, but what we've learned in our area, we have Comcast. It's if you go on demand, Common Sense Media has a channel on demand, and we allow parents, like, listen, we know you're worried about screen time. You're not worried about, you know, we have those whole conversations. Put it on the TV with, instead of watching, you know, Netflix tonight, watch that Common Sense Media. And they didn't know it was there. You know, like, oh my, we didn't know we can use our television, you know, yes, it's still worth something, but they had their whole on-demand channel, which helped our parents sit with their younger kids and watch a lot of the Common Sense Media things.
So,
and it was bilingual. Vanessa brings that. I mean, that's the nice thing, especially on the Common Sense Media channel. It is bilingual, so that helped a lot of our students here at Owen J.
Sophia Mendoza shared Dig, Sit, Commit, which I am adding to our agenda. Sophia, can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why you like it?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you, Lisa. I know it's been a long time. Well, one of our mutual partners, ISTE, along with a coalition of others in the industry, have all come together for a Dig, Sit, Commit coalition. And I think what's really unique about this coalition is that as a result, there are various competencies around digital citizenship. And earlier in the chat, I put one of my favorite videos of CEO of ISTE, Richard Collada, talking about the do's of digital citizenship as opposed to the don'ts, right? The new digital citizenship, which has really been amplified over here on our side of town here in LA. And these competencies are really around, I'm hearing a lot of you already talking about this, being inclusive, right? How can we continue to be respectful of other viewpoints online, making sure that our students are informed, right? What is that accuracy, that perspective of what's being posted on social media or in our social spaces, being engaged, you know, how can we really leverage technology and these digital tools for civic engagement, sorry. And we know that a lot of our educators are doing that. We know our students and our families are leveraging all the digital platforms, especially social media, for that civil engagement. Another competency is being balanced, making really those informed decisions on how to prioritize my time. You know, Paul, earlier I heard you talk about one of the concerns that parents have around screen time. So how do I really know how to regulate myself? And the last competency being around being alert. How can I be aware of my own online actions and creating those safe spaces for others? So if you all haven't had that opportunity yet to explore the DigCit Commit website, it has a plethora of great resources, especially as we start to make that shift. Yes, safety, security, that is part of it, but we really want to start pushing that and that challenge toward that more positive and authentic do's around digital citizenship. So thank you, Lisa, for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I do think that is so important, because so often when we're thinking about digital citizenship and social media, and even like something that we're thinking about now, I know a little later than other districts, because I think we're like the latest district for the school year. We go till June 26th, but graduation, we're thinking so much about how to be safe and what not to do, instead of like, how do we have people engage in ways that are very positive and beneficial for us? So I really love the idea of focusing on the do's rather, because everyone is always focusing on the don'ts. So yes, I agree with that. Go ahead.
Can I throw a question out there?
Yeah, Paul, go ahead, then Laura.
Is anybody doing anything on teaching kids how to balance fact from opinion? Like, we're having a hard time having children understand anybody can say whatever they want on social media, but that may be opinion. How do you research the facts? How do you get the real data, or make a real honest, this is what I believe is true? I mean, that goes from the personal level to the professional level, that we're all having those issues, but we're finding our students believing whatever they see this post and not researching it more, be it even if it's friends or whatever. Is anybody doing anything very creative in that space?
So in New York, one thing we're using, I don't know if you've heard of it, but I've really become a fan, and we've partnered with them and delivered training and whatnot, is newslit.org. Mm-hmm. And they have a tool called Checkology. Do you know about Checkology? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do have schools that are using Checkology and newslit.org. So that's a resource that we've used. And there's another one that I should be able to get off the tip of my tongue, but it is, I'll let other people talk, so it will come back to my head.
And see, that's great for school, but they're not doing that for personal. Like, you can't use those sites to say, Joni said Billy did this. Like, they're not putting, like, that's that whole piece that we really need. Yeah, when you do an assignment or anything like that, is anybody doing anything on that other level? I know Karen's going nuts over there. I think she's having, I think she wants in. Karen wants in.
Karen, can you unmute your mic and share?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was trying to find the, I didn't think I was going to participate. I wanted to just sort of listen in, but so anyway, thank you for catching that. I wanted to join in. I appreciate it. Yes.
think Karen's having.
But it's relevant. It's very, oh, can you hear me?
Now we
keep
can.
You keep cutting in and out. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will maybe turn off my video, so hopefully that helps.
Okay.
But you can still hear me.
Mhm.
So at this past fall, I started a unit. I teach in a K through 8 school, and with my middle school students, I've been doing research units in which they have to research particular topics over a number of weeks, and then it culminates in a Socratic seminar. So we've been doing Socratic seminars with our middle school students on relevant digital citizenship topics in my computer science classes. I do a third of my year on digital citizenship for the classes. So what I found was that State had published a study to see if they could tell the difference between real and fake information, and started that with that as a springboard discussion with my students. Didn't tell them what it was for at first, just said like, hey, let's, this will be fun, let's check this out. Sorry about the dog. And
that's okay. We like the
it
dog.
never fails. All right, never fails. She was quiet until I turned on my mic. But we started with that as a springboard discussion, because once they took the quiz, and then finding out what was real and what was not real, and what got them, what sucked them in to the, like misidentifying and what they thought was perfectly legitimate, and starting to look at things in new lights. And then having them generate the questions about fake news, real and fake news. And we use Teams. We're a Microsoft school. So in the team, we kept track of those questions. I would post resources for them to help them do their research, but also encourage them to post resources. So we would have discussions in class and build the arguments for it. And then it culminated in like I said, a Socratic seminar in which it was completely student run and student led, where they discussed the research and discussed their own situations. I encouraged them to bring in their own experiences with their family members, with teachers, other adults in their lives, so that it wasn't just focused on the kids themselves, but how they were seeing, the whole real fake news debate going on. And I am a little bit of a rebel, so I did encourage my students to not shy away from the political aspects, like what is to gain from misinformation? Why do people do this? And, it's not just for political reasons, but, middle school and high school students do it because they're trying to increase their street cred, right? Their own
Clarity. Sure.
Yeah. And so that was all discussed. So is it going to stick? I don't know.
I hope so. Thank you so much for that, Karen. So we're actually at time, and as I predicted, because we have all these awesome people here, we won't really have time for this bonus activity, but I do want to just show participants that we do have, and I'll share my screen again, on our slide deck, there is a whole bunch of resources that you can see here from Common Sense. And we also have, hold on, the next slide, a bunch of free curriculum resources. People were sharing some great resources in the chat. Please continue to drop those in and we'll add them to our agenda. Thank you so much, Christine, for inviting us to do this webinar. Really appreciate being a part of the conversation with so many smart and awesome people. And I'll turn it back to you, Christine, to
Oh
wrap
my
us
gosh,
up.
thank you all. How did 45 minutes just disappear like that? It's unbelievable. I just looked at the clock like, oh my gosh. Thank you, Paul and Lisa and Laura for your time and all the amazing work that you do. And for the participants, that we will put these, make sure these slides are all up in the conference hub. So we'll get those up by Monday, hopefully. And thank you again. So our next session starts at 5 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to be covering, talking about SEL, and mental health, and how that all kind of falls into, you know, kind of next step for this conversation. How do you take care of your school communities at home? So thank you, everybody. And this is a lounge, so if you want to hang out during the break, that's fine as well if you have more questions.
Thanks, Christine from Tech and Learning. We appreciate you.
I love that microphone. Thank you.